Hi quilters, it's Pam from AccuQuilt. I'm here today to help you do some step-by-steps as we walk through putting together this beautiful quilt called Nordic Winter. Isn't this fabulous? We'd like to thank our friends at Cotton and Steel for their donation of fabric. I love the white on the gray and the white on the cream. I think it just looks beautiful. So to make this quilt, you're going to need your 9-inch cube. You're also going to need your 1.5-inch strip die. The reason is we're going to cut the sashing here with our 1.5-inch strip die. And don't you think this is fabulous how they have put those cornerstones to match the fabric around them? It gives it a whole new magical feel. We're going to use a big 4.5-inch strip die for our border and of course our 2.5-inch strip die for our binding. So let's get started. First of all, you're going to use your 9-inch cube. Now, if you don't have a 9-inch cube, you can use your 6-inch cube, your 8-inch cube, or your 12-inch cube. You just need to adjust the fabric requirements. Now, in our cube, we're going to use 3 dies. We are going to use die number 2, which are those smaller squares. We need die number 3, which is my favorite shape, half square triangles. Now, you'll notice, quilters, that we have 2 half square triangles on the die board. So when the instructions call that you need 2 half square triangles, you actually only need 1 piece of fabric. And then finally, we need die number 5, which again are those smaller half square triangles. And again, there are 2 on the die board. So the most important thing you need to remember is that the lengthwise grain of the fabric needs to travel back and forth across the die board. The reason is that lengthwise grain is really tight, and then you're always going to get a clean and accurate cut. Remember, with AccuQuilt, you're 90% faster than with rotary cutters or scissors. It's fast, it's safe, it's easy to use. So now I can cut up to 6 layers of cotton fabric in one pass. So I actually have 6 layers here on die number 2. I have 4 layers of white, and then I have 2 layers of the red. So what you need is I'm going to take that label and put it at my belly, put the die cutting mat on top. Now I'm using my Go fabric cutter today. You can use your Go Baby or your Go Big. All right, now here's a little tip of the day. If you lift it up, all the pieces fly everywhere. So you want to give your mat a little bit of love and then slide, don't lift. So let me show you how perfect, ta-da, I cut those squares. So I'm going to set this aside. Next, I'm going to cut my half square triangles. Now this was great because I know that the lengthwise grain is across the die board because the salvage is away from me. Label at my belly, lengthwise grain, salvage away. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut it here. Remember to give that mat some love. Slide, don't lift. Now I'm actually going to keep this little scrap of fabric because it's a perfectly good piece of fabric. All right, and then the last shape I'm going to cut are those half square triangles. So again, I can cut up to 6 layers of cotton fabric in one pass. So I have 4 layers of the cream and I have 2 layers of the gray. Now I'm actually going to cut the other direction because with our Go, you can turn the handle both directions. So here we go. All right, give your mat some love. Slide, don't lift. Pull back that, and ta-da! Now quilters, you're going to notice that with our half square triangles, we've actually cut off the dog ears for you. And this means right here along this edge, that's a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. So not only is it going to be cut perfectly, but you're going to be able to sew it so much better because we've cut off the dog ears. Now I have taken my pattern, and I would suggest quilters that you download this pattern. It's a free pattern at AccuQuilt.com. I would download it so that you can see how to cut it and sew it together. It's a really good reference. I also laid out some of my blocks so I can see how they fit into the quilt. So these 2 blocks right here are already sewn together, and this 2 sections of this unit are sewn together. So this is some of the pieces that I've already cut here today. I'm just going to show you how easy it is to sew them together. So first what I did was I took my square and I sewed it to my half square triangle. And you're going to notice that I pressed those seams open. Sometimes quilters, when we press to the dark side or we press to the outer edge. In this particular quilt, we would suggest that you press those seams open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this particular unit here. So now look, you want to make sure that you have the fabric right side up. There we go. And I always make sure that I'm sewing it in the correct direction. All right, so I'm going to set it here in my sewing machine. And again, you're just going to go and make that perfect 1/4 inch seam. All right, ta-da. Now watch, I'm going to set this seam, so I'm just going to give it a shot of press. And then look, I'm going to open it up and iron that flat. The reason we're going to do that is so that when we go to sew it to the half square triangle, there isn't as much bulk and it's going to just lay that much flatter. So now I'm going to take my half square triangles and I'm going to line it up right here with my other unit. Again, we've cut off the dog ears, so this is a perfect 1/4 inch seam. Going to start here in the edge. It's really nice when you get to the edge and you know that you can see the edge of those dog ears cut off. Because again, it's just another measurement to show you how easy it is to put together. So, ta-da! Look how perfect that point is. So I'm going to set the seam, and then I'm going to press actually towards the dark half square triangle. So again, all the pressing instructions are in your pattern, so be sure and follow them. Okay? So now I have to look at my pattern. There we go. And look how beautiful that fits right together with the other part of our unit. So I've done the same thing over here where I've sewn the 2 half square triangles together, and then we're going to sew it to the square. So I'm going to do the exact same thing, only with our smaller half square triangles. Now quilters, sometimes if you're trying to start cutting or sewing half square triangles, you might want to use a piece of jumper fabric. Sometimes your needle gets stuck down there and buried into the sewing machine. All right, I'm going to set that seam. Then I'm going to press it open. All right, so I'm going to open this up. Make sure you're pressing, not ironing, right? And then look how pretty that is. Okay, now I want to make sure that I need to look here in my pattern to make sure that I'm ironing it in the correct direction and that I'm going to sew it in the correct direction. So these 2 points meet together just like they do over here. Then I'm going to take this unit, sew it to my perfect square. My little strings there. All right, set my seam, and I'm going to press it. Look how great that looks. I'm going to press it to this outside square. Look how fun that is. So since I have pressed it to the outside square, then on this unit, when I sew them together, that seam is going to be right together and it's going to lock right into place. And it'll make my points perfect every single time. All right. All right, again, I'm going to just set that seam and press it to the side. And ta-da! Now I've made another perfect unit. Look how great those points come together and how equal and even your blocks come because you've cut them perfectly and you've sewn them together perfectly. So all you have to do now is sew these 2 units together sew this unit to this unit, and you've made a whole block just like we have here. Wasn't that fast and easy? It's so great because every single cut is perfect every single time. Quilters, we would love to see your finished projects. Please go to AccuQuilt.com to the Sew and Tell page. Upload your photos and share them with other quilters so that they can have inspiration as well. You can always follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Remember that at AccuQuilt we help you cut time so you can quilt more.